So, good afternoon, everybody. I know for me, it's night. For others, it's just afternoon. However, welcome. Definitely happy to see everybody here. For those of you who have not already met me, my name is Anna. I'm one of the money coaches here at Snowball. Happy to have everyone on. Tonight's webinar, we're going to discuss money and relationships. I don't want you to think that when I say that, I'm only referring to romantic relationships, because I'm also going to talk about money and how it intersects with our relationships with our friends, as well as our family members. So again, most of you are familiar with me, especially those of you who I see on who are premium members. I know that we have our coaching session, so you're pretty familiar with me. But if you have not already met me, I am a certified financial planner. That is the standard of excellence in the financial planning community. I'm also a licensed investment advisor representative and very well versed when it comes to delivering financial education presentations. Per usual, those of you who have joined know that I give my disclaimer before we jump in, and that is that the content of this presentation is designed to be educational in nature. It's not meant to be investment, tax, or any advice at all. There's no way that I could advise everybody in this capacity, so it's not a financial planning engagement. It's more like thought-provoking. And like I said, at the end, when we have our discussion, I'm hoping that you learn something new or that it encourages you to try something new as it pertains to money and relationships. So as usual, I'd like some engagement from you right from the start. And my question is pretty simple. It's a yes or no, but if you'd like to add in a little bit of extra, I always love the razzle dazzle. So in the chat box, could you please let me know, would you be open to combining your finances with a partner or even with a friend? And the reason I threw friend in there is I've actually heard of some arrangements where people have combined finances with like a close friend or family member and decided to buy property together or live together and so forth. And so just wanting to hear from my group here in the chat, would you combine your finances with a partner or friend? I it sounds like right now the going answer is no. Anybody else have anything to add to that? All right. So as of right now, okay, we've got another answer. If I'm living with a partner, I would want to at least one account for both of us. Okay, good. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit you with just a few quick facts, okay? A 2019 study from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville reported that regardless of the level of happiness in a relationship, money is a topic that couples constantly disagree on. So I guess that old adage of opposites attract must be true, and it must also be true when it comes to money as well. I can speak from personal experiences that I've worked with quite a few couples over the course of my career in coaching. And I will say that one of the interesting things is I've often seen a frugal person with a spender or, something of that nature. Not really sure what the chemistry is that does that, but I've definitely seen that arrangement on more than one occasion. There was a recent study from eToro that suggests that if you own cryptocurrency and put that in your dating profile, it makes you more desirable. Now, there's a lot of things that we can infer from that study, but for me, what I kind of assumed from it was it sounds like if you are financially stable or you appear to be financially savvy, that it might actually make you more attractive in the dating realm. Regardless of how we look at things, what money really is about, and was talking about this earlier when it comes to money mindset, managing money is really about managing emotions. And so when you're talking about money and romantic relationships, it's going to pretty much be the same as, the core values of your relationship already. You need to have shared values and common goals. Those are essential in any of your relationships, but definitely in romantic relationships. So, with that being said, knowing that those shared values and shared goals are important, let's jump into how to talk about money. Because for many of us, talking about money is extremely taboo, period. We don't talk about it with our friends. We don't talk about it with our families. And believe it or not, a lot of couples don't talk about it either. I have personally worked with couples where the first time that they actually found out what their spouse made was when they had a meeting with me. And that's just the case. So when we think about it, let's talk about 5 rules that you can use when you want to start the money talk with a romantic partner. So the first one is show the benefits of having the talk. If you're here tonight on this webinar, then it lets me know that on some level, you care about your finances. On some level, you are engaged. That's not going to be the case for everyone. So you might need to show your partner the benefits of actually having the talk. So what are some of the benefits? Well, you could say, hey, us getting on the same page about this is going to make our lives so much easier, right? The other thing is to take the time to understand everyone's perspective. If you've joined the money mindset presentations before, then you already know that how we grew up with money certainly matters. You know, how our parents manage their money, what we think about money. Some people see money as security. Other people see money as a means to go out and live their best lives. You have to understand how your partner views money in order for you to actually come to the table to set up some sort of agreement between the two of you. Third is to be honest. I can't tell you how many times people have told me something different than what they've told their partner. One great example would be telling someone, I don't mind, you doing this when you actually do mind. Or saying, I don't have an emotion around this when you clearly do, right? So you have to be honest. The fourth one is don't assume that your goals are the same. Talking to you all again, I'm not a therapist, but sometimes I feel like financial coaching actually dives into the therapy realm because, again, managing your money is close to managing emotions. So whenever I sit down with couples, one of the things that often shocks me is how often people have assumed that they have the same goals, that they have the same values. And then one person says, no, I want to buy a home in the next couple of years. The other person doesn't want to be a homeowner at all. Someone wants to retire early. Another person says, I feel like that's a futile goal. So again, don't assume that your goals are the same. And then finally, when you're having that discussion, make sure that you find the middle ground. Understanding that there's some way that you can come to an agreement. And I'm going to show you on the next couple of slides a few of the ways to find the middle ground. So first off, let's talk about some of the questions that you can ask your partner to actually start these conversations. A good one is, how do we pay for things such as dinner and entertainment? I don't know how many of you are on social media. I try to stay off of it, too much. But there was an article that had gone viral, I guess, where there was a dating coach who said that men should always pay on the first date because it lets you know whether or not your partner is entitled. And basically, he said that if the woman that or man that you were going out with didn't offer to pay, that it would tell you something about who they are as a person. I don't know that that's necessarily true. What I do know is that expectations should be set up front, especially as it pertains to paying for things like dinner and entertainment. Otherwise, you could end up with a situation where one person feels resentment or even used. Another important question: what are your beliefs about helping friends and family financially? This is a big one, as it can indicate a huge culture clash. If you're the type of person who feels like, if my friends or if my family are struggling, I'm going to rush in and help them, but your partner is more along the team, let them figure it out, this could definitely become an issue later on. So finding the middle ground early before it even happens. Another question, and I won't go through each one, don't worry, but how much do you plan to support your children beyond traditional years? There are people who don't mind supporting adult children, others who believe, they're adults. It's time for them to take care of themselves. And then those questions that you Might not ask on a first date, but hopefully eventually come out. How much debt do you have? What's your credit score? Are you a saver? Are you a spender? And then once it's really deep, especially if you're looking for a good conversation with someone that you just started dating, what's your earliest memory of money? This is going to tell you a lot about your potential partner, not their character, but it'll tell you a lot about how they view money. And again, that's important when we're talking about having shared values and shared goals. So, how do you handle money disagreements? Right? So, what happens when you're the saver and your partner's the spender? Well, what I say is when you're faced with a difference of opinion, seek first to understand rather than agree. A lot of times when we get into a disagreement, the goal is to make the other person see where we're coming from. But what ends up happening is we get into these disagreements and we start looking for an agreement from the other person as opposed to seeking to have them understand. As someone who has mediated financial disagreements, one of the things I say is don't go into it thinking, I'm going to change your mind and make you agree. Just go into it thinking, can I get you on some level of understanding? Because if you can get to understanding, you can normally find a solution. If you find that you're super far apart on an issue, right? One person says, let's not save any money, and another person says, let's save the bulk of our money. One of the ways that I found to kind of bridge the gap there is a statement that I use anytime in negotiation, which is, you know what? We're quite far apart on this issue. Can you tell me how you got to that decision? And you can actually use this strategy in just about any disagreement that you have, because what it does is it forces the other person to break it down for you and explain to you exactly what their thought process is. And it goes along with the first bullet point, which is seeking to understand rather than agree. Now, for spending differences, you might consider actually managing your money a little differently than your partner. And let's talk about how we can do that. So, here's some quick strategies to manage money in romantic relationships. One is you can manage your accounts separately. Judging from the question that I asked in the beginning, most of you prefer to manage your money separately. This is where you open separate accounts, manage things separately. Another option, of course, is joint. You have joint accounts across the board. The last one that I've seen is semi-joint, which another person said that they would be interested in, where you open some joint accounts and other separate accounts. So let me just explain how that last one works. The first two are pretty intuitive, but the last one, semi-joint, the way that I've seen this happen is people have a yours, mine, ours. And what they might do is say, in the yours account, you spend your money how you want to. In the mine account, I spend my money how I want to. In the ours account, we agree to spend our money this way. I've seen this with a couple that I worked with where basically we have one person that's a spender, one that's a saver. And by setting this up, it gives the saver the comfort of seeing their money right there where they put it. But it also gives the spender the ability to say, now in my account, I'm going to go and do whatever I want to do and spend my money how I want. One other thing I like about the semi-joint account is it allows some freedom and flexibility on those things that you disagree on. Well, if I want to give a large portion of my money to charity or friends and family, that doesn't impact our joint finances. So let's look at some of the examples here. So I'm just using an example, and then these are in no way, shape, or form actual people. But let's say Tiana and her partner decide to share all expenses evenly, right? This is not about how you put out the accounts. This is about how they handle their expenses. For them, they're going to split everything 50-50. If their monthly bills are $2,000, then each of them pay $1,000. That's it. Simple, end of conversation. As you can imagine, this can be very problematic in relationships where there are income differences. Because if I'm making 100,000 a year and you're making 50,000 a year, but we're splitting our bills 50-50, you're paying significantly more of your income towards the household bills. For that reason, what I've seen work a lot of times is actually splitting expenses in proportion to the income. So for this example, I'm going to use the example of Jasmine, and she makes $70,000 a year. Her partner makes $30,000 a year. Combined, that's $100,000. So based on that logic, Jasmine will cover 70% of the bills and her partner will cover 30% of the bills. This is so basically they're putting their income towards the bills in proportion to what they bring into the household. The third and final example of how you could manage expenses is using the example of Whitney. Her and her partner put all of their money into the joint account. They pay all the bills together and don't separate anything. This is different from the 50-50 arrangement because with the 50-50 arrangement, what they're doing is they're not necessarily putting all their money together. They're just splitting their bills 50-50. What Whitney's doing is saying, let's not even count it up. Let's put it all together, pay all of our bills together, and we spend from the same accounts. Some people find that to be the most fair arrangement. But I'd like to hear from you all. What strategy would you choose? And if you choose none of the strategies, that's fine. But what strategy do you think is most fair? And in reality, the more I think about it, I don't necessarily know that I find one strategy to be fairer than the others, as much as I find some strategies to be more effective based on the relationship. But I'd love to hear from you all, any thoughts that you have. Let's see. Number 2, if you have to choose. Okay, let's go back and see what 2 was. I totally forgot. Okay, in proportion to income. Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that that one's fair. So now let's dive into another one and let's talk about money and family. Now, here are some statistics that I think this group might find pretty interesting. According to a Clark poll, upward of 80% of Black parents and 70% of Hispanic parents expect to be supported financially by their children. Now, what brought me into reading this study was I was reading on the wealth gap and some of the challenges that people of color face when it comes down to building wealth. And a lot of the studies show that one of the primary reasons why people of color are unable to save as much as their counterparts is because they give so much financial support to close family. And for that reason, I want to start this next section by talking about balancing out family obligations with building wealth. So first question, open discussion. Let's see if I still have the group here with me. Do you plan to support family or friends financially? And let's see where we have it here. No. Yes. Okay. We have some disagreement there. Yes. Okay. So we have some pretty generous people. Yes. I think, okay. So it sounds like most people do plan to support family and friends financially. And it could be either or, family or friends. I don't find this to be uncommon in a lot of situations. Someone said, I am my mom's retirement account. I have a parent that believes the same thing. So here are just a few of the rules that I look at when we're talking about family and those dynamics. First is determine if and how you want to help family. There is no correct answer here. There is no guilt if you're saying, I don't want to financially be responsible for friends or family. There is no guilt. It's really just a determination. Do you want to or don't you want to? And that's really it. You know, the second one is if you decide so, make sure that you're putting your own mask on first. So if you yourself are not financially stable, if you're struggling, if making money is burning you out, then you have to take a step back because you're no good to anyone if you can't actually produce. So again, you have to put your mask on first. If you are deciding to help family, which it seems like most of us are, create a fund for gifting and assisting family members. I can't tell you how beneficial this is, just in the sense that, okay, when I set this money aside, then I know how much I have to help people. And it makes me feel good to know that money set aside for them, as opposed to pulling those funds from somewhere that you actually needed it, right? Pulling it from your retirement, pulling it from your your fund to purchase a home. That's never really a good idea and it can create resentment. So consider separating your money from money that you'll use to help others. When the fund is depleted, make a rule that so is the assistance. That's an easy way to set a boundary. And then the fifth one is offer alternatives. I had a client that I worked with where a lot of her friends, as well as family members, really saw her as the person who had it together, right? She has her head on straight. She's working hard. She makes good money. So whenever things went wrong in their lives, they reached out to her for help. And her way of helping was always to come through financially. Well, just like we all know, that can drain you dry, not only financially, but emotionally, and it changes the makeup of the relationship. I have found that when you are the one who is responsible for helping people and people see you as a source of assistance, sometimes that can change the nature of the relationship where you don't view them the same as you did before. And so consider whether or not their problems can be solved in other means. For example, perhaps they need debt counseling. Perhaps they need to set up a savings account. Maybe you could help them by actually volunteering your time, giving them something else. Hey, you know what? I really can't help you cover these bills, but I can help you make some phone calls. Simple things like that are ways that you can actually deal with that. So let's talk about talking about money with family. It's certainly not an easy discussion. So let's talk about some ways to do that. First, identify the emotions. You have to call out what the actual emotion is. Is it the case that you absolutely want to do this and you're doing it out of love? Or is there some guilt there? Do you feel guilty if you don't help people? Do you feel obligated? What is the actual emotion? Identify that first, and then communicate your emotions to them as well as your personal needs. It is okay to have needs and desires, and it's okay to say, I want to keep the bulk of my money. That's not a selfish statement, right? It's an honest statement. So, a conversation about communicating your needs might be, yes, I am doing well for myself, but personally, I'm working really hard so that I don't have to work so hard in the future. And if I were to give you this money, that really affects my goals and my ability to do so. One of the things you don't want to do is ruin a relationship, right? Over money. And so, one of the things that we say is be kind and firm about the ways that you can support them. If you leave too much wiggle room in there, and this is why I say firm, if you leave too much wiggle room, then there may be some areas where people are thinking, hey, maybe you didn't quite mean what you said. Maybe I can come back and actually, get that money when I need it. So make sure you're bringing being kind and firm, and then also break any cycles of dependency. Right now, when I'm talking about dependency, I'm talking about people who are thinking, who are able-bodied, right? Obviously, not your children or someone who actually depends on you, but someone who's an able-bodied adult that has decided, you know what, rather than making responsible decisions or doing what I need to do to take care of myself, I know that I have this fallback plan and I'm just going to fall back on it because it's dependable, right? So try to break those cycles. And you don't have to do all of this immediately. I completely get it. I understand. I love my family. I love my friends. And I'm sure that most of you do as well. So it's very hard to think to yourself, man, I don't want to let something as simple as money get in the way of a relationship. But it's very, very important that you are taking care of yourself, that you set boundaries with family, friends, but also that you set boundaries with yourself in terms of, hey, this is what's important to me. This is me putting me first. So some people will say, well, Anna, I don't really know. How do I know what's the difference between me actually, just showing my love and having weak boundaries? Well, the first one is if you're going into debt or over giving and spending way too much for loved ones, that could be a sign of a weak boundary. Another one is saying yes when you really mean no. I promise you, the discomfort associated with saying no is less than the discomfort of saying yes when you really mean no. Because when you say yes and you really mean no, you actually end up following through with it and it continues on. When you say no, it's uncomfortable at first, but then you've put the ball in the other person's court. And now you get to see how their level of respect is for you and how they respond to that no. Another sign of a weak money boundary that might go unnoticed is when you agree to go to last minute trips that you know you can't afford. Accepting less than you deserve for services that you provide. This is a big one. I've said this before. If you've been on webinars before, then you've seen this slide before. But in kindergarten, they always told us, treat people the way you want to be treated. The older I get, the more I understand that that is simply a false statement. We don't treat people the way that we want to be treated. They're adults, okay? They have their own personalities. They are their own people. We teach people how to treat us. And the way that we teach people how to treat us is in what we allow. One of the quotes that I love, I have no clue who said it, but is if you accept it, then expect it. You have to be kind and firm with what you do and how you allow people to respond to you. So let's get a couple kind and firm statements. If you have any that you know of, put them in the chat. But one of them that I like to use, this is exactly how I say it to people: I love and support you, but I'm not able to help you right now. And if I really want to get into it, I say, I love you, pause. I mean it, pause. I support you, pause, but I'm not able to help right now. And people generally understand that that is me being firm. There is no wiggle room in here, right? It's kind of like a negotiation technique, right? If you leave wiggle room, people are going to jump in that gray area that you gave them. Another one is no, thank you, but it sounds lovely. I'm not in a position to take on anything else right now. That's a great one for a time saver as well. I know a lot of us are very busy, so it's not even a dishonest statement. It's just, okay, I like that one too. It's not in the budget. Simple. So plenty of kind and firm statements that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because we're going to break out into our working session. And what we're going to do is within our group, we're going to discuss, do you need to set boundaries, and how do you on a personal level manage money and relationships?